Tēnā koutou katoa, and welcome to the inaugural lecture of the Fast Forward Lecture Series 2023, which is generously sponsored by JIP and supported by Te Kahui Whaihanga New Zealand Institute of Architects. I am Paola Boarin, Associate Professor of Architecture, Technology and Sustainability and Associate Dean Teaching and Learning at Te Pare School of Architecture and Planning of Waipapa Tomotaro University of Auckland. I'm also the co-founder and co-director of the Future Cities Research Hub, which is a research group bringing together researchers from various disciplines to extensively investigate the complexities of built environments and their interfaces with natural ecosystems. We do find innovative and effective solutions at all scales, from individual buildings to entire neighborhoods, cities, and regions. And we work with institutions, industry, government, and communities, in addition, of course, to educating the next generation of built environment professionals. Please do check up our website at www.futurecities.ac.nz for more information on our research and educational activities. The presentation today is part of the international events for the Italian Design Day 2023, which means that there are going to be presentations similar to the one we are about to start everywhere in the world. Discussing the contribution of Italian designers to the many fields related to the built environment, the creative arts, and much more. The lecture is organized as a collaboration between the Future Cities Research Hub, the Embassy of Italy in Wellington, and Studio Carolina Izzo, based in Auckland. Unfortunately, the Italian ambassador to New Zealand, His Excellency Mr. Francesco Calogero, couldn't make it to be with us tonight, but he has sent us a warm welcome message that we are now going to play.
Kia ora, good afternoon, buonasera o buongiorno. My name is Francesco Calogero and I am the Italian ambassador to New Zealand. Firstly, I would like to thank the University of Auckland, Professor Paola Boarin, the Future Cities Research Hub, and the Studio Carolina Izzo for having organized this meeting, this interesting event, and for giving me the opportunity to address you with a short message. Before I start, I would like to express my solidarity and condolences to all the people affected by Cyclone Gabrielle, which recently swept across the northern part of New Zealand, causing much damage and fatalities. I would like to say that Luca Bertacchi is a brilliant example of the Italian excellence in the fields of architecture, design, photography, and more. Such excellence derives from the fact that Italy, right from its origins, has been at a crossroad of different civilizations, cultures, and peoples, which have contributed to the creation of a unique civilization. The variety of experiences and skills, mode of expression and sense of aesthetics, which we have absorbed throughout the centuries, have all contributed to our very rich heritage in the fields of art, architecture, and design, from the times of the Etruscans to the present days. Also, nowadays, Italy finds itself in the midst of different political, economical, and cultural areas, hence suffering the consequences of present confrontations. However, Italian art, architecture, and design, in so many areas, from industrial fashion to design to fashion to interior design, continue to shine and to express many of the best individualities in these fields. Presently, also New Zealand is proudly a multicultural and multi-ethnical society. I think this is another element which unites our two countries and makes them culturally richer and able to understand and speak the universal language of beauty and art.
But yeah, we do thank Ambassador Calogero for his warm welcome, and I think perhaps we can go on, and then if we can later on, we can maybe try again. I would only want to say that it's been really, really important to us and very good experience as well to be working with the Italian embassy in Wellington on this, because really it is so important to present the multiple contributions of Italian architecture and Italian design on this day. And I have to say that this presentation wouldn't also have been possible without the contribution from Carolina Izzo. Carolina is an internationally renowned Italian conservationist who has dedicated herself to conserving art and heritage in Italy and New Zealand. Knowing Carolina personally very well, I can also say that she's also very active and very generous with her time in supporting the Italian community and Italian businesses in New Zealand. And always a pleasure to working with her on the organization of such events. Carolina, over to you.
Thank you. All right. Oh, well, I just say two words before I'll give you the information, the presentation back to you. So I just would like to say thank you to the Ambassador Francesco Calogero for supporting the Italian Design Day 2023 in New Zealand. And thank you to you, Paola, for organizing the event inside the Fast Forward lecture series. It is an honor for me to be involved in this organization. The initiative offers opportunity to hear about Italian design through personal experience from operators in the sector working around the world. The event is an initiative promoted by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Italy and its diplomatic network to foster the presence of Italian design abroad. My background is, as you mentioned before, is based on heritage and conservation, and most of my team here in Auckland, the studio, have been trained in Italy, the country that holds the record for the most UNESCO heritage site in the world, practically 58 sites. Our training in development of conservation projects takes place through historical knowledge, which is followed by the recognition of construction techniques and material consistency, with the diagnosis of the phenomena of deterioration and instability of the fabric. This process includes a continuous verification regarding the principle of compatibility, sustainability, and sharing of enhancement processes, all within an activity of comparison with the body and organization responsible for the purpose present in the area. So back to you, Paola, and everybody enjoyed the presentation. Thank you, Luca, to be with us today.
Thanks, Carolina. Before I introduce our keynote speaker today, just a friendly reminder that this webinar will be recorded and it will be made available on the KAI YouTube channel for you to see later on. If this is relevant to you, attending this webinar will give you 10 NZRAB CPD points. And really very important, throughout the presentation, please feel free to post your questions for our speaker at any time via the Q&A box that you will see on your screen. And we will reserve some time at the end of the webinar to answer your questions and to activate a conversation with our guest. So again, this is the first event of the Fast Forward lecture series in 2023, and there is no better start than with Luca Bertacchi. Luca is an Italian architect, urban planner, photographer, and globetrotter. Passionate about travel and the cultures in which his projects are located into, his working approach allows for the creation of projects with identity, seeking solid and complete solutions on the basis of complex parameters and a strong environmental approach. With particular attention to the aspects of use, design, and organization of space, Luca excels in maintaining a strong concept throughout the different phases of the project until the end of the construction. Luca joined Béchou & Associés in Paris in January 2015, becoming associate partner and director of architecture, working on a wide range of projects all over the world. Prior to moving to this appointment, Luca has worked for 10 years as a senior architect at the internationally renowned firm Mario Cucinella Architects in Italy, and co-founded the interior design firm Studio Battiferro, both in Italy again. Luca has also been an official photographer of the Olympic and Paralympic torch relay in 2006, Olympic Winter Games in Turin, Italy, and later in 2009 and 2010 at the Olympic Games in Vancouver, Canada. The contribution from Luca today explores the multiple connections and facets of the Italian design industry through examples of award-winning architectural projects. From quality as a common ground throughout the entire production chain to energy as fundamental element of production processes. From sustainability as ethical approach for the respect of the environment to people as a focal point around which innovative ideas are conceived and developed to combine function and well-being. Luca is currently in Toulouse, France, where it is 6:15 a.m. in the morning. So we thank you, Luca, for an early start today and for giving us the privilege to listening to your experience as an Italian designer and architect working in the global world. Thank you, Luca. And now over to you for your presentation.
The pleasure is for me to be here with you, everybody. So first of all, before it gets started, of course, I want to thanks a lot, Paola, for this organization, this opportunity. It is always nice. And actually, I'm not used to speak too much about myself and my career. I would say that it's the first time that I try to put together this, first 20 years of work and job. So thanks a lot to you for this opportunity. Very, very honored. And Caroline as well. And I really hope we can meet physically next time, either France, in Italy, or New Zealand, where I hope I can come one day. So thanks a lot, everybody. I will share my screen. Maybe I start with sharing my screen. So I have prepared sort of presentation that will go through my parkour in this first 20 years. I will try to stay with the 45 minutes, 1 hour maximum. In any case, if you have to cut, or if I take too time, don't hesitate to stop me, and I will try to speed it up. It can happen. So I will try to share my screen. Put full page. Why it doesn't work?
Control L.
Okay. Can I reduce this? You see full screen like this? Okay.
Yeah, we can see that. All good.
Okay. So, so my name is Luca Bertacchi. I'm an architect, and I'm really very honored to be speaking this 2023 Italian Design Day. So I will really share with you today how Italian design, architecture, and background have helped to shape my work and my career that I would call likely my young career, because as we used to hear every day at university, before 50 years old, you never become an architect. You are not an architect. So I'm still under 15 years old. So I wouldn't say that I'm an architect. This at least is what they learned to us. And I can confirm you actually that it takes a lot of time to be an architect. So the opportunity that I had to travel a lot, foster and shape many different aspects of my work. So I added to the title, the Enlightening Quality, the Energy of Design for People and Environment, 3 small words that I call beauty follows meaning, because this is where I would like to bring you at the end of the presentation with 7 examples of recent projects. Some of them been built, some of them still in a competition phase. As Paola explained, I love travel, and I have the opportunity to travel a lot, many different countries. Never been in Oceania, so this is another reason to think to come to visit you at one day. So I was born and raised and trained in Italy, work and live there. As an Italian architect working abroad, I've been really influenced by Italian rich cultural heritage, for sure, and the Italian design architecture. It's always been very interesting. I always liked to visit site and to study how design is well known as a unique combination, the Italian design of elegance, functionality, and simplicity. This is a three word that is very important in every single project we do at the office. So on the urban scale, Italian architecture respects the context. Context is a very important word. That somewhere in Italy is very stronger than ever. And hate to not impose, but to complement the surrounding. So on the architectural scale, we execute the conception to each of the line we draw and never miss any smallest detail. This is a key element of our job. So no matter where I go in the world, this approach has always been in the back of my head. And I've tried to incorporate these principles into a project and to add more values to our community and to play a role as an architect to fight against global warming, which for us as architects, it's really, and everybody knows, is an obligation. So today we'll share with you this experience, an insight on nature-based solution, which goes beyond what is sustainable design. And I will try to explain you quickly a little bit more about that, and biomimicry architecture. So my journey started, I raised in Bologna, where I spent 25 years of my life, but I came late, too late, because back in 12th centuries, Bologna was known as the New York of that age. And if Dante Alighieri had a camera, he could have taken this picture with 180 towers, and he called in his book, La Fosca Turrita. So in a way, I could say that I always felt that there was something behind and with me in the city that interested me and pushed me to go towards design and architecture. But unfortunately, today there are always 23 towers left. But in any case, the city of Bologna has played a very important role in my life. Then my journey of architecture started in Ferrara. When I started my training university back in the 90s, and Ferrara as well, even if it's well-known and historical cities with a very strong heritage, at some point in the history, back in the 15th century, was known to be the first modern city in the world, thanks to the additional cooler of Biagio Rossetti. It's very interesting how, and this is something that we knew, that I understood really after our university study, this is how somehow we can, sometimes it's not easy to find, to understand how story has shaped ourselves and how our cities also in which we lived also shaped our background and our unconscious. So Ferrara was very important because I spent 5 years there. But then at some point in 2003, I was selected to participate to an internship in Brazil, which gave me the opportunity to study and to travel to South America. And it was undoubtedly a turning point of my life. At that moment, I was very interested in large-scale project, and Curitiba was without any doubt the best city. And urban planning in Curitiba is very, I didn't know, but it was one of the most important example how development and a sustainable development at urban scale was done and built with a very strong vision of an architect back in 1975, Jaime Lerner, which is the former mayor of the city back then. And was really a good opportunity to study big scale. So I was really interested in urbanism, urban scale, and urban planning. So this was very important because it gave me the opportunity to understand the importance of social impact in what we do, and also see that even if I grew up in I would call old cities, the new cities are cities in which architects can have an impact. And I wanted to have an impact. I wanted to participate in the evolution of our cities. At the end of this experience, I decided to stay in Brazil and to work at the IPUC, which is the Planification Urbanism department of the city. It was an incredible experience that brought me to my final work that I published there, which called Towards a Public Space, which really was my focus at that point. I don't want to deviate from this subject. I want to really, but I think it's important for me to share with you this experience, since from someone coming from Italy, where history, context, and conservation are so embedded in our DNA, the experience of Brazil really showed me that the other side of the globe, and it gave me a new perspective and appreciate the Italian heritage, which I was already familiar with. So at that time, I was traveling the world, and I thought architecture and design were quick, easy job, as long as you have a good idea. That's very, very easy mistake that a rookie does. So, but maybe thanks to this mistake, I embarked on a journey after I graduated architecture to become an architect. But in any way, this was not exactly how I started my professional career, because in 2005, I was selected, thanks to some friend of mine, to be the official photographer of the Turin Winter Olympic Games. I didn't know anything about Olympic Games, about Olympic Flames, but was really a good opportunity because photography has always been with me in all my travel, my journey, and it always be really a way to express the great passion of what we see in our cities. It captures the cities, metropolis as the reality with a sort of artistic expression. So in 2005, I had this opportunity to travel for 64 days the country, so visit every cities possible and to follow the Olympic torch. It was really a very important city, but more important, I would say, it was, and then just after that, I started working in architecture, but I will come to this just in 2 minutes. After this journey, I was working already in Mario Cucinelli's office, but I had the opportunity to do really a once-in-a-life opportunity to leave and to start from Olympia, Greece, the Olympic torch relay for Vancouver 2010, that brought me from Olympia, Greece until almost the North Pole as the only official photographer for the Olympic torch. 106 days that allow me really to live a unique experience going in every and each first community nation in Canada and doing 45,000 kilometers. And this really explained me the importance of Olympic dream. And I understand the value of the Olympics that really since then has also allowed me to, I believe, work better and act as a better architect. Values of peace, friendship, tolerance, and hope. This, for example, is one of the pictures I did in Temple of Hera back in Olympia, where this Greek nose is smelling the flame. And really, it was just an unbelievable experience where the flame is lit without any lighter, just because the sun is at the zenith and is lit with mirror. And since then, the journey started from in Athens with the handover ceremony, and I was really always in front of this Olympic flame that I don't know if everybody knows, but the flame that is lit in Olympia is the same flame that then is lighting the big cauldron in the Vancouver Stadium 4 months later. And it flew from them to Vancouver with the flame in the plane as well. So a very long journey that allowed me to get to know Canada, Niagara Falls at night, this picture. This is the most northern community in the world. It's called Grise Fjord, minus 54 degrees Celsius. It looks like a Hollywood background, but actually it's true. It was really a freezing place. And then what is important for me in this experience, and I will quickly end it up with photography, but what's important is really to see how doing something with heart, with photography, could quickly help me to tell some stories. The same time we can do with design, with architecture, photography can do this and can have a very strong impact, as I really had the opportunity to see in Canada. And then I finished this picture, which was named on 2010 among the best 100 picture of photojournalism in the world, which is a picture in South Dakota, where 4 Indian national community met for the first time, thanks to the Olympic flame, at 4 in the morning with minus 30 degrees, following the flame, and each of them was singing their song, and after that they get together thanks to the Olympic flame. So really this sort of message that we can do, for me, is something keen that I really try to follow in every single step of my life. So photography and architecture, what they have together. In these long days when we were traveling, I also realized that my interest of architecture and photography have something in common. And this is the notion of time. Both are extremely intertwined with time, and yet completely opposite. Photography retracts time. All the energy in an environment is shortened to the specific second when the photo was taken, whereas architecture, however, expands time. It's a couple of years time of conception, construction getting expanded to century that the builder will be standing. And this is something really that for me is sort of a necessity to do both, to really compensate somehow the frustration of our architectural project that takes very, very long time. So architecture and time, it's really something that it's important. And I would say that such a realization started to help me from my own approach of architecture. And now we can design something in the present that pays tribute to the past and contribute into the future. With that question in mind, I have discovered that architecture, I believe architecture have 5 important links to me. So durability. Architecture is meant to be long-lasting. It's a temporary structure. Therefore, architects must consider how the building will withstand the test of time. The material and construction method used to be must be durable, sustainable, to ensure longevity of the building. Functionality. Buildings are designed to serve a specific purpose, whether it be a place of residence, work, and design must consider how the building will function over time. Adaptability. Building needs to be able to adapt to change needs and conditions. As time passes, the way people use a building may change, but the building must be able to adapt to those changes. And nowadays, it's a crucial subject with what is going on with, for example, offices that is no longer occupied as before, how we can really change, reconvert a whole building, office building in housing, for example. Design must be flexible then, enough to accommodate modification or renovation without compromising the integrity of the building. Aesthetic, of course, value architecture is often tied to the time. in which the building was built. And the design must consider the cultural and the social context of the time in which it's built, as well as how it will be perceived by future generations. We should not be focusing in doing a fashion building, but really something that stays for a long time. Historical significance also as a last point, architecture is often used to express a culture or a society value and belief. Historical building can tell us much about the time and place in which they were built. And therefore, preserving and protecting historical architecture is also crucial in maintaining the historical and cultural identity of a community or a nation, whether it's in Italy or even abroad in New Zealand, of course, and I know that Carolina doing a great job on that. So in the conclusion, the notion of time is critical consideration in architecture. Architect must consider the durability, functionality, adaptability, aesthetic value, and historical significance of the building in the design process. Understanding the importance of time ensures that the building will continue to serve its purpose and to be relevant for future generations. So after coming back from touring trip, as I said, I started officially my architectural career with Mario Cucinella. And I joined the company in 2006 as an junior architect, doing physical models, working in various international and national projects. And I was very lucky when I joined the company, a really great opportunity to work with Mario Cucinella. At that time, where it was a little small office, I would say. We were 15 people at the beginning. And I've been confronted to the reality of our job directly, really soon in my career, early in my career. I had 24 years when I lead the first project, which is this project in Milan that we built back in 2008, which is the first certified Class A, which was the highest energy classification in Italy at that time, office building for 3M, the chemical company, the American chemical company, and which was part of a big master plan. But for this project, it was not only meant to create a building, which something that the university they teach you, but really to do something with a strong commitment to sustainable architecture and lower energy consumption building. And since this was my first building, since then, and since what I learned also at the office of MCA, this sort of study need of work in this direction never let me down. So was an office building with a hard and very strong work on the facade, which was protected with shading devices with different color and different depth in order to avoid over heating in the facade. But this was really a very good start of my career. Then almost 8 years later, I had the last opportunity in the office, in which really I work in many different projects, to be the senior architect and the leader of this amazing project in Accra, in Ghana, as project director for this that is the first certified green building in West Africa. And this was a great opportunity from a human standpoint, also professional. And this was one example of how we can really shape our building according to some relation to local culture, historic culture, nature, and make sure that the building is not just a shape, but makes sense. And what you can see in this building that we build and we design was this sort of overhangs, this element that shades the facade for 80% of the time of the working time of the building, with an internal atrium that you can see here during the construction that allow natural ventilation throughout the building. And this also because we wanted to do a naturally ventilated building in such a climate. This is the final result of the building. But I don't want to stay too much to this, but just to see that, of course, 4 years in Ghana helped me to get to know a little bit more also Africa. We've been to Nigeria, to Ghana, we did different projects. This is the only one that we built. Then during my experience in Marie Cucinelle office, I had a really big chance to meet with Anthony Béchou while we were working in a project in Monaco, in Monte Carlo, here in Europe. And I had the opportunity to meet Anthony Béchou. And then a couple of years later, in 2015, I joined the office in Paris, where today we are between 60 and 70 people working in different projects in France, China, Morocco, and Senegal. The office is quite unique. 2 years ago, we celebrated a century of history since the grandfather of Anthony founded the company back in 1921. So when I joined the company, and I didn't know this importance of history and the unicity of this office, it was a turning point of the company after such a long history. And the office was looking for new generation of architects that can bring the office into a new dimension and the dimension of today. For the young generation and for the fourth generation of this family office building business, we have Clémence and Aliénor Béchou, who are the fourth generation of family ranking office building. They are daughter of Anthony, that are a business development director and interior design. And there is me as young architect generation with them, with other associated architects, to try really to continue this journey. And it was really a great journey since Anthony is very open-minded, is a great man, and let us experiment and explore this new vision, a new approach that he already started when he joined the company 35 years ago. So I don't want to take, of course, all the credits of what have been done in these 8 years of my experience in the office, because our job really, and I want to focus on that, is the result, even if it's often forgotten, of a team effort and a teamwork. So I will show you some projects that I managed, but really in a way that I would say it's really a team effort, and I want to focus on that. The energy and the passion of collaboration in the office has helped me then only 6 months later to become partner of the office, and today I'm a partner, allow me to help to change completely the way we work in the new methods, new approaches, and new research development department. Now today I direct a large team of architects, engineers, and I like to share my idea with them really in a way that ideas not belong to one people, but to a group of people, and to co-create projects. So when we go back to the roots of how Italian design or Italian heritage has inspired generation and myself, we often speak about a single name of great architects, and as it was a one-man show. But I don't like too much this sort of approach. That's why I'm not very used to speak about myself. But that was a very common notion back then during my studies also. Today, the practice of architecture is different, should be different for me, and is deeply rooted in a multidisciplinary approach. And this helps enormously in producing high quality work with different competencies in different range of things. And this is really knowing to not know, for me, is one of the most important things that we need always to remember. So what's the new approach of our generation? We know sustainable architecture. We know. I mean, for us, it's sort of, as I explained you, was a starting point for me, but maybe is not enough. So sustainable architecture, we know, minimize negative impact, reduce consumption and pollution, use renewable resources, reduce CO2 gas emission, use environmental friendly materials. It's very good. I mean, we need to focus on that. This is what we do. We do many projects, a lot of projects focusing on that. But there is also somehow, sometimes, the opportunity to go beyond that and towards an environmental regenerative project, where we can inspire our project by thanks to the nature, with a nature-based solution, in harmony, and contribute positively into the context, be part of an existing ecosystem, and to be evolutive and resilient. So what I wanted to show you now, the 7 projects that I prepared to you are, the first one is the first competition that we won in 2015, which was supposed to be, today is built, an energy positive building, which at that time, I always feel very, very interesting to have the opportunity. This competition we won to do an energy positive building, which means that produce more energy that it consumes, which is good. But then we will see later how today is no longer enough, because we need to focus maybe more in how to reduce consumption, whilst how to produce energy. In any case, there was a competition of 70,000 square meter office block for a local developer here in Paris. And we win the competition. We needed to be very compact and at the same time iconic. So the project was very, in a way, defined. The masses of the building was all already there, but we needed to play with the volume to avoid this big mass and try to cut it in different small elements, and try to see how the facade could play a very important role in one side to get to this iconic image that was demanded in the brief, as well as to reduce then the solar heating of the building. And so, to be energy positive, we needed to integrate a photovoltaic panel to be added in the overall scheme, energetic scheme of the building. And we added a full photovoltaic canopy on the roof. And we designed the building. And since this project was the first building, this first project at the office, in which we started using parametric tools and parametric computational design to help in the conception phase to understand, to calculate how shape, how orientation impact the building. So this was the first building. And we studied each and every facade in order to try to find the right balance between opaque surface, transparent surface, and now the 2,500 square meter of photovoltaic canopy can play an integrated role in the building. So this building was competition, we won, and it's been built since 2008 with this sort of, even if it's one unique building, what we want to do is really to try to find a sort of human shape, even if it's 136 meters long. With the colors, we play so different color really in order to try to, reduce this impact. So there is always the big scale approach, the demand, but our job, even in the detail, even with color, can sometimes really help to find the right solution. So this is the energy positive building, and you can see here there is the photovoltaic canopy on the top. Here are some pictures of the building with a void in the middle and a sort of passerella that connect the higher floors. So the second project still very focused in sustainable architecture and how to reduce impact thanks to the conception of the building. It's an office block, and here we had a limited opportunity to work with shape. This building here is a building that was built in 2003 that we've been called to do an extension of more or less double size. So the work was to try to quickly to understand what's going on, what was the orientation of the building, and how to try to avoid to put some shading device on the facade, but at the same time shading the most exposed facade, which is south here, of course, in Paris. So we wanted to see how we can try to play with the shape of the facade in order to protect the interior from direct sun radiation, but at the same time having a lot of natural lighting getting to the building. So we studied different solution, and then we ended up also the project is called New Corner, which is the corner, this typical Parisian angle, in which you needed to be very iconic as well. So, and this is facing south. So we said, okay, so let's try to put some external spaces for the building and for the different floors on south, and to do this image of this vertical forest that comes up and become the icon of the angle. But at the end, on the other two facades, to not see any transparent facade facing south. So this is the building built. That is the result, of course, of a long study. And as you can see here, this is the building built. This is facing south. So the facade here is fully opaque. And this is thanks to this system that we call plissage, this system of facade at form of triangle that are fully opaque with an opening element that allows natural ventilation to get to the building that facing south, and are fully transparent towards north, where there's no sun getting through, in order to really have this sort of full glass panel in each and every floor to really allow and to ameliorate the perception of the interior space of this office block. So here you can see even more clearly the south facade, southwest, and the north. It's the same building, but and it's nice because it sort of gives this sort of vibration of the office. So, but this is not only just an aesthetic, just a form, just a pleasure to play with shape, because of course it costs money, and it costs more than what a normal facade costs. In order to convince the client, we needed to have numbers to explain him that doing this, he could reduce his bill, his cost of energy. So we wanted to reduce the energy consumption of the building. And we did that. And after many studies, we ended up with a reduction of 35% of the solar gain of the building. So the heating of the building will have, the cooling of the building will have a direct impact in reducing the cost of climatization of the entire building. This is only playing with the facade. So we can do something that respond to the point that I mentioned to you before, and really have an impact to the environment, reducing the energy consumption, and even in the build of a client. And the facade is also, but is a little detail, it's larger as we go up. It's smaller at the bottom, higher in the top, in order really to reinforce, enhance this sensation of protection towards the most exposed facade. This is a new corner project. Then what I wanted to show you is the project that we did. I'm a different project in Africa since we won a competition in Morocco that I show you later. We also won a competition in Dakar, Senegal. And after after these two different commercial buildings, I wanted to share with you this project in Senegal that is under construction, and is the result of competition won in 2017. And luckily, the client actually changed completely the site. So we won competition, it changed the site, but luckily it didn't change the architect. And so in 2018, we started again this new project. And at that time, we won the competition with a campus project. The idea of doing a university campus for this ESM, which is a private management school. But since the site changed from a very large footprint of the site to a very small site, we just decided, rather than a normal campus, to turn it upside down and to do a vertical campus. And how to create a 20,000 square meter campus with 3,000 students in a very small footprint. But the idea is to recreate what is called their arbre à palavra, which is the trees of words, which is this very strong image of the local culture in which people gather underneath the trees to speak. And so we wanted really to try to find a shaded space where people can gather and spend some time together. We need to focus not only in building, but in how people live in the building. And so we concentrate the classroom on the back of the building. These are some preliminary croquis that we did in order to see how local villages function, how natural big old cities also function. And now we can inspire on that in create our building. So as I said, the building, which was really a school, an horizontal campus, very simple with class, we turn it upside down in a vertical campus. And what I wanted to, as I said, what we wanted is to find the space to have an external areas in each and every floor for students. Then we decided to concentrate the classroom on the back of the building and to expand the interior space outside. We open completely this shared areas to the city, to the environment, showing the living activities of the living campus outside. And we put a particular attention to classes facade with a lightweight system with terracotta brissolé. So here outside, there's all the space that are external and livable for gather, for study. And inside there is the classroom that are shaded 100% of their hours, because it's very hot, of course, in the car. The fact that there is a lot of shaded areas around the inner surface allow them to be naturally ventilated, of course. Here is the school the school level, and the local culture wanted to have the whole building full air conditioning. We pushed the idea that this building could be naturally ventilated. And then at the end, the roof is a beautiful space for students to gather and cover with some recycled ceiling element that will allow to have a strong impact in the reduction of solar heating of the roof. Which is very interesting. This example, again, is have the opportunity to travel, to understand local culture, and try to be helped with what my Italian heritage, our local culture, our experience can help in a way to not impose anything to another culture, but just to try to add something and help this sort of melting pot experience that everybody can do when we cross each other in different countries and when we meet different people. So this idea was also to be to become an icon of this corner of the Point E, which is the main center area of Dakar, with this prefabricated structure that is painted in this red that recall the color of the local soil of Dakar. Then the last three projects. So this is from the hot climate to the extreme cold and northern climate. This project we delivered in 2016, and as well as together with the D2 tower that we can see even maybe in our website, are our first example of how intelligence of nature can help conceive better project. Here we start getting into this what I call biomimicry approach. We had a very simple, severe scheme as a starting brief. The project is meant to be a temporary residence for professor for the Skolkovo Innovation Center. And so from a human perspective, we know that in such a climate, it's often hard to stay outside and to get opportunity to enjoy the external areas. So if somehow, somewhere we try to fight with the heat island, here we needed to fight with the cold island effect. So since luckily we still cannot change the climate condition, we thought that we could do something to try to reinvent, to change this cold island effect and to convert it in a hot island effect. Let's say to mitigate this hard climate. And the reason why is because on one side, of course, from an energy perspective, even if you reduce the temperature of the building, of the external area, you reduce also the need of energy to warm them up. And secondly, to give the opportunity also to people to meet, to gather together. And in this climate that I experienced since my experience in Canada, is always very, very hard to stay outside. So we try to play different scheme of project. We needed to put more or less 100 units of these houses. And we play different scheme in more Fibonacci series, more random areas. But really, we wanted to see what nature has already proved us during the 3 billion, 8 million years of story. And I will ask maybe to share quickly a video of 1 minute that will explain you what we did. So I stopped the sharing for 1 minute. I will take it again to share the video. If someone can share the video with the...
I will.
And then I will take it back. I hope it's clear till then. I almost finished 10 minutes.
Oh, that's great. Don't rush it. Don't worry.
I hope you can.
I still have this sound issue. It won't let me share the sound. So,
but anyway, if you have sound issue, I can keep the sharing, and I will play the video if you want.
Yeah, we cannot hear the sound.
the sound is.
I take again the sharing, and I will show the video. No problem.
Okay. When you want to share video, when they ask you to share which screen you want to share, there is a little button that says sharing, share the sound. And I just couldn't click on it.
Anyway, I will comment on you quickly. So can you see the video?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this video is just to show you what in nature, what we found in nature, which is that penguins in the Banquise, in the Arctic, to keep warm, they stay together and they create this sort of circular movement in order to eat them up one to another. So they keep warm, they stay warm because the warmth of the other one. And as long as they go, as far as they go in the center of this, we can see in the center is very hot. So the penguin outside is very cold, is going inside, it becomes very warm because the body temperature is warm them up. And then in another experience is coming outside and is sharing his temperature with the other one to keep them warm. So this sort of sharing temperature and proximity of people, it's very, very interesting in how, even in this very hard condition, with position and shape and a sort of organization, penguin can survive, and they can even create temperature that at the center of this group are even 30 degrees Celsius, where outside there is minus 30. So it's very unique. I'm sorry, the explanation was clearer than mine, but it's, I think, enough to understand this sort of idea. And so there was this idea that helped us to say, why if you don't really, instead of create distance between building because different thing, why if we don't really create a very concentrated complex with a lot of proximity, with buildings that are close one to another, and this with a sort of external circular series of houses that protect the external wind to not come into the complex, into this new neighborhood. So this is in the few months of the year where there's no sun, there's the building that has been built. And since 2016, it's very interesting because it's been monitored, this building, and we found out that in the last 7 years, the temperature inside is inside the external space of this neighborhood, which is outside, but between the houses, is 5 degrees hotter than the temperature outside, which in a way you can say between minus 30 and minus 25, there's no more changes. But actually, when you think about temperature or how to heat the building, between 70 degrees and 22 degrees in the house, it makes a lot of difference. So this 5 degrees allows to reduce drastically the consumption of this complex, and also really to be proud of something and helping people, to see them, to talk about them, and to live this and read an example how nature can inspire a design. So this is a Skolkovo Innovation Center. And then the university, and then we go back to a hot climate. This is an international competition we won in Lyon in 2015. It's a very important project because for me it was the first competition we did in the office where we push the conception in extreme climate condition, in a very constrained climate site. And thanks to parametric tools and parametric design, we managed to really propose to, this was the OCP, which is a national government phosphate institution that invested for a university in the desert. It was quite hard at the beginning to conceive, to imagine a building in a site without context. As I mentioned to you earlier, and to refer to what also Italian heritage can taught us, context were always important. Sometimes we fight with that, we don't know what to do. Actually, there was no contest, and we were really lost, even worse that having a very different context to work with. So we thought that instead of doing a building, we thought that we had to dig and to find the building underneath the sand. And that's why really is sort of idea that you can see here on the Dune des Sables, on the sand. The building was for me already there, and we discovered the building, and we wanted to do something as passive as possible, without air conditioning. Try to see what in biomimicry design we could learn how to, I mean, natural ventilate the building, create a Canadian anyway, all the passive strategy of design were applied in this building. What is really interesting in that was a competition of 70,000 square meters in the desert, and with 80% of soil tear that we put on the roof, we ended up with a building that everywhere except to the conference center, the inside temperature was 22 degrees at maximum at the hottest season, but without air conditioning. So it's fully natural ventilation, except to the conference center of 500 people, of course, because too many people. And this is something that really we developed, we studied, and we conceived at the conception stage, at early stage. We as architects, yes, of course, we need engineer, we work with them, but we need also to be very conscious of with that. And so this building is really, this complex was conceived as, I come back 1 second to it, was conceived as a series of separate buildings connected together thanks to a central spine that consisting of a canopy that from above produce shade, but also comfort to students outside the building. This is thanks to a system, because of course in the desert there's no waste possible, no central waste treatment. So we said that we should treat the organic waste into compost for the gardens, and water, and to create water to be able to spray under the canopy, as you can see here, and to make sure that in this very dry climate, thanks to this very dry climate, it allows to do passive evaporative system and to increase then the relative humidity of the external area by misting drop of water, and then to reduce the perception of the hot temperature, and then improving the life condition of the student. And this is only treating with the algae, the organic waste of the campus. And this is something really we studied and we proved during the conception of the building. For different reasons, this project is still on, we developed till the schematic and detailed phase, but the site haven't started yet, but we hope it will start one day. And this, just to finish to explain this project, is something really, again, in which I want to make a point very important for me. When I talk about technology, innovation, computational design, for me, it's key to use as much technology competencies as possible in the early stage in order to achieve a more passive, lower energy building as possible. In this case, we prove in different many examples, and it's sort of iterative process, how we prove and we try different position, inclination angles in order to make sure that the bioclimatic solution we propose added a real value to the building. And this is the case. I will not have time to enter into detail, but if you want later, I can explain you more, some detail about that. And this is university. Last two more projects, if I have time, Paola.
Yeah, sure.
Can I still have 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
Absolutely, Luca. Yes, feel free to take the time.
Go ahead. So this is the competition in Biarritz, south of France. It's a biomimicry research center. And so where really the conception of the building was supposed to be pushed and its maximum. So it's very, very unique project we did in the office. Just go back here to this picture. In a site, which you can see here, a site where all the waters coming from the city of Biarritz and Bayonne were conveyed and very polluted because the cars, because polluted water in the site. So we thought that we could really try to make the building as a filter. How can a building, instead of taking out some resource from a site, from an environment, from a place, could eventually do the opposite, then adding something, solving problem. So with that, why don't we think about doing a liquid building, which is a building always covered by water? And then we found that we ended up and we found out that in nature, there's one very strong example that it works very well and allows also biodiversity to install, which is, I think in English, it's called foreshore. In French is estran. Foreshore is the area above water level at low tide and underwater at high tide. This area can include several types of habitats with various species of life. So marine biologists divide the interstitial region into 3 zones, which is the low, middle, and high zone, based on the overall average exposure of the zone. So the lower interstitial zone, which borders on the shallow substitial zone, is only exposed to air at lowest or low tide and is primarily marine character water, which is this lower part of the roof of the building. Mid-interstitial zone is regularly exposed and submerged by average tides, and a high interstitial zone is only covered by the highest and the high tides and spends much of its time as terrestrial habitat. So why we do that? Why we did that? So actually we wanted really to be the building to be a filter. So thanks to this building, we thought, and to the fact that Biarritz is the city with the rainiest city in France. So it's very with a ratio of rainfall very, very high. With that, we need to play with water. So we cover this building with water, and different season, of course, it can be more or less. But the building filtered the water, and we studied this scheme of the water parcours in order to make sure that it's filtered, thanks to a system of what's in English, the phytoepuration. I think like this phytoepuration system. We filter the water with a tropical plant. Then the water is reinjected into the building, used in the gray water, so in the sanitary, in the toilets of the building, and then reinjected again, but filtered to the Natura 2000, which is a park close by, before going to the sea. So building as an active element, as a regenerative project, really something for me very interesting. We enjoy to do this project, and it's a project that really has a strong impact, and it's a project that's been published many times as a strong example of how this natural-based design can have a positive impact and be regenerative, and as well be ready for the adaptation to climate changes. Because if today we know the extreme condition, the extreme event that we're facing more often than back in the days, so the building should be ready. And since the building is a filter and is capable to absorb the water, it's already a building that is already facing, it is ready for the adaptation of the future climate changes. And this, of course, has been studied with our tools, parametric tools, in order to see how the facade are protected. And it was a building that at the end as the first one that I show you in Nanterre, was a building that produced more energy that it consumes, thanks to the waste that we had produced, that we have with the plant on the roof, as well as with the very more large-scale approach. There was a écurie, there was a sort of horse camp close by, and of course, all the waste created by this activity were brought to the building, and thanks to micro-mechanization system, we produced biogas that was used to the building in order to heat it up. So I almost finished. This is a project in Nice, not very far from Biarritz, but it's a project very, very important for us. It's the second last project I will show you, and it takes inspiration. Again, it goes beyond this sort of inspiration and sustainability approach. It takes inspiration from a barrel cactus. It's called ferro-cactus in French. And the project wanted to investigate how to create new shadows of its own, how a building can, as the cactus does, create its own shade, and how to increase exposed surface in the less sunny facades. The question was how to shape the building without having shading device on the facade. At the same time, we did a new second project I show you. I believe that we played a lot and maybe too much with shading device, and there is maybe a way to play more with the shape rather than putting some brise soleil shading device in front of the glass facade to get to the same result. So what we found out actually is that the barrel cactus, its shape, it's not by hazard. It's a shape that allows the cactus to create its own shadow. And as we can see here, there is always one facade that is exposed to the sun, and the other one that is shaded. So this different of pressure of temperature from one facade to another create this movement, this convection movement to the hot to the cold, and then allowed, thanks to the climate condition that changes from the day to night in the desert where the cactus live, to really create this movement and to create his own water and to survive. So nature has already, during these 4 billion years, found the right shape for this plant to survive in order to be autosufficient and to create his own shadow and his own water, even if it doesn't rain. So look into that. We didn't want to do a cactus, of course. And then we needed to convince also a client to do a facade which was not sharp, but with this sort of scheme as well of plissage, of this augmented surface. What was interesting is that the answer, of course, in how to is to try to convince them that it will cost less at the end of the day, even if it costs more at the beginning. So we needed to see that and to prove that it works. So we did different exercise, different studies about angles, and we wanted to play also with modularity of the building and to see how this building, for example, as you can see, that facade here is north and this facade is west. So it should be different. And what is interesting, looking to the climate condition of Nice, is that we needed absolutely to find a way at night to cool down the building in order to reduce the need of conditioning the day after. And then this was really a strong intention as well to help biodiversity to install and to create different terraces at different levels. So this project was a project that really pushed this conception furthermore, that we calculated the impact of such a design in order to see that the same facade sharp without this shape will have absorbed 100% of solar radiation. Thanks to the shape of the building, will reduce only because it creates its own shadow, 30% of reduction. And then if you have the terraces, we ended up with a final result of reducing by 70% the solar heating to the building, with of course a direct effect to the building and to lower the consumption of the building. I finished with this project, which has been built. Next week we will be in the MIPIM conference in Cannes, and it will be shown as a project, as one of the best international projects made by a French office this year. It's the project in the desert, close to the one I showed you at the university, as well without context. What was very interesting here, moreover the human experience, it was because there was nothing. So the building is supposed to be a research center with different departments studying sitting research laboratory, renewable energy, sustainable architecture in the desert, and biosaline agriculture. A project in the middle of nowhere, in the south of Morocco, where nobody have never been installed, where only nomads, local Sahrawi population has walked and lived there for centuries. So we decided to do what? We decided to design a building using what nature had to give us: wind, sand, sun, and water. And we decided to protect the building from a very strong wind, and therefore the sandstorm, which is this direction, is the northwest direction. We protected 100% of windows from the solar direct radiation, and we create a place to unite people and to create community, to people to meet together, because with different building in different departments. And I can prove you, because I've been there, stay outside without protection to wind in some season, in some period of the year is really impossible. This was really a project that we have to do quickly with very simple and easy material, easy geometry. And so we did that with one simple and single module that is replicated. And the shape of the building in one side then is protect the wind thanks to a wall that is running 2,500 meters in the desert, like landscape element. Then the building has its own internal patio that is protected with some wind deflector that avoid the wind to get into the patio. And the patio at the same time plays a very important role on naturally ventilated the building. And this building wanted to be also an off-grid building. So it's not been connected to the local electricity system, because it produces its energy thanks to the photovoltaic panel on the roof, and as well as at the end of the next stage of the project with the aeolic element and moreover a photovoltaic panel behind the protection wall. So this building really wanted to connect people and to create an external space with a strong cultural relationship. So outside we play with the typical Sahrawi color of their dress, which are blue, dark blue. And the building has been built. And as you can see here, there's no apparent windows, but actually windows are behind it. And the element that designed the facade is the same element that is repeated with different distance, because it depends if behind there is windows or not. And it creates this amazing space that really become an icon. And the sun, actually, what is very nice is that the sun creates this amazing effect of shadow in the ground of this sort of promenade, where today people can stay outside, can enjoy, and this area is protected. And the wall, actually, what I didn't tell you, is that the wall, the concrete wall, is really a wall that is facing south. So it takes the light directly and re-inject and allow more lighting, more natural and indirect light to get to this space, and really to enjoy this space that I can suggest you one day to go and to see. And that really make me proud, because it's a team effort. It's a project that we did in the office with many different people during COVID as well, which has been very hard to manage the site in Morocco. And that's it to me. So this is the end of my presentation. I hope you are still there. I look forward to a fruitful discussion, and hope that this conference will lead new collaboration and initiative that will help to create together a world for generation to come better.
Great. Thank
Fabulous. Kia ora, Luca, really thank you very much for this fantastic presentation today and the wide range of projects that you showed us and explained, and that are really carrying your wealth of knowledge as an architect.
I can hear you.
You can.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just saying thank you for sharing all these wide range of projects, and they definitely carry with them the wealth of knowledge and let's say the professionalism of Italian architects and Italian architecture. So really thank you very much. Before going into some questions for you, just a friendly reminder to everyone who's online and listening to us tonight to post their question in the Q&A box so that I can see them and I can transfer this to Luca. I do have a question to break the ice, okay, for you. You mentioned at the beginning of your presentation that elegance, professionality, and simplicity are recognized globally as traits of the Italian design. Do you think these characteristics should also become goals for architects and designers, so something to aim to? And how can we work towards that?
Sorry, you've been cut. Can you say it again?
Oh.
Sorry, Paola. I heard answer the question.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you
Yes,
hear
I
me
can
now?
hear you.
Yeah, okay.
With a little bit delay, but yes, sorry.
Sorry about that. So I was saying that at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned elegance, professionalism, and simplicity as very recognizable traits of Italian design globally. Do you think these are also characteristics that we should aim to achieve also as architects and designers? Not only a definition of Italian architecture, but also as designers. And how can we get there? How can we become really the embodiment of these features that are typical of Italian design?
This is very a
simple one to start with.
This is good. It's very hard question. I mean, I think there's no one answer in our work. The good answer does not exist for me. There's many answers. It depends on what you want to say, and as well. And when we talk about elegance, simplicity, and aesthetic, it's totally subjective, which means that we can't say for me, this is elegant, this is good, this is simple. Because I'm sure that if you speak with Frank Gehry, he would say that it's simple is architecture for him. So I believe that, I mean, this is really totally personal answer and approach. I believe that rather than an aesthetic and a beauty result or goal of our project, I would more focus to the meaning of what we do and what we do this for what. So, and I said as I was indicated at the first slide, beauty follows meaning. For me, the beauty of what we do, the aesthetic, so then the elegance, so then the simplicity or not, is really what the building can communicate to people, not only on a eyes, on a view perspective, but really in what is the message that is conveyed. That's why, for example, the product I show you in, for example, one of them in Biarritz is a building that becomes a filter. I always imagine that people going there saw that as a building, but even not a building, like I don't know how to say in English, spugna. It's like sponges, no? That it filters. So this is a message, and a message that you can tell to people, to kids, to new generation, not only as an aesthetic that could last. Of course, I mean the aesthetic would last, but if you see in the architectural history, recent architectural history, I would say the last century, I mean the aesthetic had last not that long. I mean, after 10, 15 years, that aesthetic was no more in the fashion. You know what I mean? So that's my point. Yeah. If I answer to your question.
Yep, thank you. I have another one here. Your presentation today focused on how quality should always be at the forefront of a design work. What are your tools and methods to prioritize quality within the sometimes constraining construction industry, where cost is typically one of the main drivers?
Very nice question. I think I answered a little bit already this question, where I explained that the cost cannot be an enemy, because otherwise we won't be able to build a building and to do our job. So the cost can be a final result, but to get there, and somehow it happens that we fight with developer. There's maybe another different way to see cost, which is not the cost of the day I build the building, but is the running cost of the building, and is the lifetime of the building, and how the money are spent and invested throughout the entire life of the building. And it's very interesting, and maybe you know that the conception of the building, which and the construction, which lasts 2, 4, 5 years, impacts more or less 50% of the carbon footprint of the life of the building. So in the first 4 years, we already spent 50% of the CO2 emission of the building, whilst on the rest of 50 years, we spend the other 50%, which means that if we don't conceive rightly the project, we have already missed 50% of the opportunity. So, and that's why we need to keep focus on doing the right things, try to fight global warming and reducing CO2 emission, and doing this according to the budget. So, for example, in the project I show you, always we had to say, okay, you will spend 20% more in the facade, but for example, in 5-year times, you will have already recovered this investment, and each year you will save that percentage in the energy cost of the building. So really, I believe but this is something I started a few years ago. I would say, thanks also to the office, to Antonio's approach, to believe that really budget is not an enemy, is an ally, but we need to view things on another perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. There is another question. You are not consultants in sustainability, but you and your team are obviously well tuned into the engineering mechanics of it. How do you promote these skills in your office? Do you organize specific seminars? Do you have a team dedicated to collect documentation and case studies and share the knowledge through the team? That's a very important question, I think, in terms of development opportunities also for architectural offices and design offices.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good question. Yeah, absolutely. I always say, I think I also mentioned that we're not engineers. So what we do is a starting, I would say, a starting procedure to then be applied and developed and studied by engineer. But such competencies is the competency that we have in the office. We have a specific people that does this, and I'm managing this because since the beginning of the career, I studied and I know how to approach to this subject. And we do every Friday morning, we do an internal meeting presentation to share a project idea, and we call external consultant also to come. It's a sort of coffee morning to 9 to 10:30, in which we share project ideas, and even we share new tools. Today, I mean, our intention, my intention is to enlarge this, for the moment, small team that does parametric design and parametric analysis. But at the same time, we need to, to equilibrate also internally at the office for who does this in the office, knowing that as again, we need to play on a multidisciplinary approach with different consultants. So I like, more than doing everything in the office, having an idea and then calling consultant. We work with the local French, very important, that won this year the Urbanism Prize 2022, Franck Bouteille, which is the most well-known environmental consultant in France, in every project. And this is really the way we can learn, we can share ideas. So, I mean, it's really something. And then there was another point I think I didn't answer, was how we share. Do you still have the question, Paola?
Yep.
No,
so how do you share the knowledge through the team?
But the team actually is shared through the project. And for example, when we approach if I take the example of the Nice project inspired by the barrel cactus, throughout our life, we don't focus only in architecture. So we do some biology research in our team, our day off, in our day. It's something that is there. It's sort of curiosity. So without curiosity, we can do only anything. So, but we don't have a dedicated team that does this, because I think we can be architects, stay where we are, and just be ready to share with the other that knows better than us.
Yeah, no, well, you definitely highlight a very good point. There is transdisciplinarity, and how architects need actually to speak many languages, not only the architectural and design language, but we do need to look into the other domains and try to combine all this information. And well, all the work that you showed is actually speaking these multiple languages already. So it's really, really important for us to see that this is a possible pathway to pursue. And I want to take the opportunity of you mentioning the project in Nice, where basically, well, you mentioned the point related to regenerative design, but also when you talked about the biomimicry research center, you mentioned the concept of regenerative design, and we know that we can't no longer build sustainably, which means that we reach a point of equilibrium where we take as much resources from the environment as the amount of resources that we give back. We need to activate a positive balance that is more towards giving back more than what we take, especially in light of the damages to the environment that we've done so far, and the built environment is responsible for most of that. So this concept of regenerative design is really very important and innovative and new. How can we build more of these buildings? How can we really pursue a positive balance through our architecture? So giving back more than what we take.
I believe that we can't do this everywhere, because we need to have, but we need to ask ourselves the good question to find the right solution. So if there's not a problem, a real problem, it's hard to find a solution. So for example, in the Biarritz project, there was really an issue of polluted waters. So that was really an opportunity to do something, and do something that really goes into a more ecosystem approach rather than just putting a building. Because whatever we do, even if we do the most sustainable building, we take out resource from the planet. That we know, no doubt, even if we do the best. So I'm not sure that we can really do that everywhere. I would say even not. But what we can say, when it's possible, don't lose the opportunity. So for example, in this project in Biarritz, this polluted water were then going to this Natura 2000, which is called sort of a park that is going along the sea. For them, the water exit into the sea. So there was polluted water coming from the city going to the sea. So the right opportunity to do something. And so the approach of seeing a building as an organism, a living organism, I think is very ambitious and exciting opportunity. I mean, that maybe we can't do this if we work in Place Vendôme in Paris or close to central Rome. But this approach of thinking, having this sort of mindset of building as living organism, I think is a very good way to go.
Yeah, thank you. There's a very specific question that probably was triggered by the many sketches and schema you also showed us tonight, and it is around the use of parametric tools. And I would integrate the question that is asking you what type of tools do you use to measure and guide your design, also with the concept, with a question related to how important it is for architects today to be able to use these tools efficiently and positively in the design process.
But for me, it's very important. It's crucial. It's crucial because in a way you gain time, for sure. You do something quick. You can research and doing really try to express your idea quicker. At the same time, you can evaluate them not only from a shape perspective or a form perspective, but from really a performance point of view. And this is throughout what we use is a grasshopper, which is an application of rhinoceros as parametric tool. And then when we do environmental analysis, we use Gecko, Ladybug, that helps us to, in each project, see the shades of the building during the days, the solar heating. Then we use other application also to see fluidodynamics of the wind impact in our project. But this, at the same time, I wanted to really clarify, not from an engineer's perspective, it's sort of empiric approach that then will be proved. And we know, because I know, I mean, a little bit more about that, but it's good to have this approach already there at the beginning, rather than having some engineer that comes to you to say, but why you didn't orientate the building like this? Because that's, for me, is really a mistake for an architect if it gets to that point. So yeah, I would say parametric tool, Rhino, Ladybug, Grasshopper with the Ladybug as a tool.
Which to me ultimately speak about data-driven and evidence-based design. So it's not the tool itself, but it is the information we can have from the tool to, let's say, support our design and make sure that our design works. And as you said before, it works over the whole cycle, not only at the design phase. So that's really important. Thank you.
And if you talk about climate, Paula, just added one last thing. We are partner of the Climate Company, which is a French, but will be an international company that does a climate provision of how climate will change in the future, and will, with some it's very complicated algorithm, but it's very interesting because we get data from them and we integrate the data of the climate, which is not the weather data, the meteo data, but climate from data from the climate. We integrate them to our project. We also with the sort of prospection view in 20 years time, in order to see if the building with the data that are foreseen in 20 years still is working and it still makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's very, very good to hear. I have one last question for you. You mentioned that your international experiences shaped your identity and your work as an architect. What is your message to the next generation of architects in a moment where, of course, COVID-19 has impacted upon the possibility of such experiences?
I don't know if I'm in a position to give a message to young. I'm still young, as you know.
Of course you are.
Even if the gray hair.
Let's say the ones younger than you. Okay.
I mean, first of all, I think that traveling and knowing different culture is an essential element for me to see what our social network doesn't allow us to show, but meet people, have this sort of interdisciplinary approach. For me, it's very, very important. Focus on really how architecture, how future architecture can reconcile with nature, how architecture would find a way to reconcile his status with the nature, with this important, responsibility that we have as architects of reducing the world's CO2 emission, because our building environment impact a lot, as we know. 40% of global emission depends on buildings, and really see, a lot of curiosity, and don't focus too much, as we did actually, as you can remember, university in architecture, but really have an open mind and see architecture as one of the subjects to be treated, and really open to multiple relationship and partnership. That for me is the only way to really answer in the right way the question that they're going to have.
Right. Thank you. Carolina, have you got any other question for Luca?
More than a question, I want to really say thank you. It's such an inspirational presentation. Thank you, Luca. And I strongly believe, this is also my personal view, that when you can see forward what the impact of what you are creating you know, there are solutions, and you are driven by passion and inspiration, I believe that Luca is right. The money are not a barrier. And I discuss this every day on my job as well. And it's always a great opportunity to engage conversation with the client and make thinking in a different way. So thank you very much. A very inspirational talk.
Thank you for having me. Thanks a lot for having me. For me, it was really an honor. Yeah.
Okay, so I will now close today's event. Again, many thanks, Luca, for sharing your experience, your knowledge, your wisdom as an Italian architect working internationally. Of course, a big thank you to JIB for generously sponsoring this event, and to Te Kahui Whaihanga New Zealand Institute of Architects for supporting us. Thank you also to the Italian Embassy in Wellington, and of course Studio Carolina Izzo for working with me on the organization of this event, and to Tepare School of Architecture and Planning and the marketing team at the Faculty of Creative Arts and Industries for the technical support. But mostly thank you to everyone who stayed with us for these couple of hours tonight, listening to this first presentation. Our next event in the Fast Forward Lecture Series 2023 is with Benedetta Tagliabue from Spain on Thursday, the 4th of May at 6 p.m., always at 6 p.m., presenting her research works for Barcelona. The Eventbrite page will come up very soon, so watch this space, and we look forward to seeing you again in the next lecture.